Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more analyses of The Last of Us. Just finished watching episode 6, The Price. A lot of backstory on Joel and Ellie. Probably the most we've seen of Joe since episode 1. We start the episode off with Joe when he's younger. And he's talking with his younger brother. His younger brother, Tommy, is like, oh God, Dad's gonna, whip me. He's gonna beat me when he gets home. Tom, Joe's like, I've got it. Don't worry about it. Just go on upstairs. And so the younger Joe is sitting at the table when the father comes in. You can tell he's supposed to be like a policeman. You can see the badge and everything. And he's just quiet, walks in. And he's like, I've got 30 minutes until I'm supposed to be back on shift. What is it? And yeah, Joel's like, I stole. I can't remember what he said. It was supposed to be that he stole, but anyway, the dad's like, don't lie to me. I've already heard the information come through that Tommy stole something and you beat up the kid who was trying to hurt him. If you weren't my kid, you'd already be in juvie, he's telling Joe. He turned around, gets 2 beers, opens them both and scoots one over to Joe. And he starts talking, telling him, say, my father was your grandfather, was a proud man. I can't remember what he said he did wrong, but he said made him this is like he stole a thing of candy or something like that, and he's like, my father, your grandfather, made me give the candy back. Apologize. And we were driving back on the way home. And just about when we were home, bam! About near broke my jaw. Broke my jaw. There was blood everywhere. Your grandmother was worried sick. I ended up having but anyway, he was talking. He's like, I just grew up wanting to do a better job than he did. And I just want you to do a better job than I did. And yeah, that moment sets a good portion of the episode, because it becomes something with Joe that he's wanting Ellie to be better than him. It's something they kind of bring to the forefront as far as the actual episode itself. After the opening credits, we get Joe talking with Seth, getting the stuff together. Um, to make something, but what he trades, he scavenged this big Ziploc bag full of Lego pieces. It's awesome. I love that. But anyway, essentially what he's doing is he's trading it for a birthday cake that says "Happy Birthday, Ellie." But anyway, he works on building the guitar for Ellie. He's put the strings in, he's lacquered the body. He took a piece of actual bone and shaped it and ground it down to be a part of the space where the strings go. He actually carves a little moth symbol into the arm of the guitar, the neck. And yeah. They get her birthday, the first birthday cake, though, it says, Happy Birthday, Eli. I'm like, but yeah. But Joe sets it down on the counter and says, let's hope he's a better baker than he is he can bake better than he can spell. He turns around to get a knife to cut it. He turns back around and Ellie's already dug into the cake, having eaten it with her hands. It's a cute moment. But yeah. He offers her the guitar as her birthday present. She says, you play it. I want to hear. It's my birthday. You know, he kind of protests at first, says, I can't sing. She's like, it's my birthday. Go ahead. And he plays her this song and sings with it. But yeah. And so that ends the first birthday. Because what we end up doing is we go for a number of birthdays. Next they go 1 year later, and Joe brings Ellie out on her first patrol to a little spot in the forest where they have this dinosaur, I guess, statue or whatever outside, because what you find out, it was actually part of a museum, because a little further on is the museum, and they go in through their study in the museum. they go to one part in the museum. It's about space and the planets, and in what looks like one of the lander modules. The little pod things that they would usually drop back in the ocean and everything. But yeah. He lets her get a helmet, wear it while they're in there. And when they get into the pod, they lay back in the seats and they're talking. And he hands her this cassette tape that apparently has sound of a launch of a shuttle. Doing the countdown and everything. Really springing her imagination forth. So these first two birthdays are just awesome. But that was her 16th birthday. Things are about to get difficult. She the next birthday, 1 year later, Joe comes upstairs. And yeah, he's wanting to talk to Ellie, but she's kind of giggling and laughing. You can hear it behind the door. And Joe knocks at the door, got that birthday cake in his hand. It's got the right words written on it this time. Happy birthday, Ellie. But he sets the birthday cake down and says, "What's going on? What's going on?" And he looks at her arm. Got some fresh ink. Says, "You're getting a tattoo? Really? Really?" Kind of glowers at the girl that was giving her the tattoo. And she's like, "I better go." And so she packs her stuff and heads out. And yeah. Apparently, we see the breakaway point between parent and child, even though they're not biologically parent and child. They're, for the most part, child and parent in spirit. Because, yeah, it's how they've more or less been together for so long. And he he's telling her, I got a cake, doing all this. She's like, well, maybe I wouldn't need to smoke marijuana, kiss a girl, get tattoos. He's like, oh, so you're doing all the teenage grow up stuff at once, huh? And she's like, they kind of have a spat. And he tries to go to sleep that night. But he hears, Ellie's trying to move into the garage. And he stops her and says, there's no heat, no cooling. You'll freeze to death out there. She's like, I don't care. He's like, let me get it fixed. Give me some time. You can move in. Okay? So. Yeah. But they at least come to some kind of understanding on that birthday. But this is when we see the hair start to split. Next, we get another screen, and this time it says 2 years later. Ellie's sitting, looking at one side of the room, and she's talking like, I know you probably don't know, but I do have a lot of questions I won't answer. So, we begin, and you look over the other side, and it's an empty chair, so she's trying to rehearse something that she clearly wants to talk to Joe. That is clearly on her mind. But later on, they both are going out. They're doing a patrol of the area. And they have to get down because the actual path they're going down is better off by foot. They find one guy. Eugene. He's leaning against a tree, and Joe's pointing his gun at Eugene. And goes, you clean. And Eugene goes, and he kind of lifts his arm and shows the side he had been bitten. He's like, I got bit. And he says, but the way I figure, I've got about an hour. I want to see my wife one last time, please. And Joe says, I can't. It's against the rules. And Eugene has a pistol. He pulls it up and points at Ellie, brings her gun up. So they've got kind of a little standoff there, and Joe says, you don't have any bullets left. Because, yeah, this, I guess it's the slide of the gun. Yeah. It's gone. or open. But yeah. Uh, anyway, and Eugene's like, just please let me see her. Doris, I think her name is. She's that counselor for the people in Jackson Hole. Ellie's like, just let him. Well, first she approaches him a little bit and she goes, stick your hand out straight and count slowly to 10. He does it. Everything seems clear. She says, I believe him. We've got time. Let's just take them. And Joe kind of sighs. He's like, go get the horses. I'll follow you out. Ellie stops after going past him a little bit and then looks back at him. And then he looks back and he says, I swear, that is a key moment. So he's leading Eugene along this little path. And instead of taking them to where they are supposed to go, takes them to the shore of this little lake. And Eugene's looking out over the lake. And he realizes Joe brought him there to shoot him. And Joe goes, don't turn around, Eugene. Don't you dare turn around. And Eugene's like, I want to see her face if it, as the last thing I see. But eventually they're quiet for a moment, and Eugene, you can see his eyes start welling up. And he goes, I can see her. And then quiet, but a lot of birds fly up. So you know what's happened. And Joe's unhappy with it, but he's looking down, and here comes Ellie on one horse and Lean the other, and oh, you could tell that is a shattering of trust moment. And so they wrap Eugene's body up, take him back to Jackson. Eugene's wife is out there and she's crying and everything, and she hugs Joe, and he's like, he died bravely. He did the job himself, trying to really give Eugene a better image of how he went out than what he did. He wasn't scared. And Ellie has to pipe up and say, you could see the tear running down her face. That's not what happened. And she proceeds to tell the true story. And Joe's looking, he's no longer hugging Doris, he's looking directly at Ellie. He's turned to look at her. And you can tell she's staring a hole in him because of what he said. And when they finish, Joe turns her back round to Doris and she slaps him. And she's just like, get away from me. Get away. But yeah. It's that moment. That sets the inevitable clash. But they go to one more jump forward 9 months later, and we get to episode 1 of season 2. The night Ellie dances with Dina and the man confronts them, calls them, tell them, say, hey, this is a family event, you blah, blah, blah. Because there's two girls dancing together and they have a kiss. Stupid people. But anyway. Joe, of course, goes off and shoves the guy down. And he and Ellie have the blow up when Ellie's like, I don't need your fucking help. And so he goes back to the house, picks up the guitar, and he's sitting on the porch playing. And eventually Ellie shows up, looks at him on the porch with the guitar, and then just walks right past. He kind of sighs and looks down, And then in the background, you can kind of see her show back up. She steps onto the porch, looks out over the railing with her hands on the railing, and they have the conversation that everything's been boiling towards. And Ellie asks, Joe, says, I need to know what happened that day. So I'm going to give you one more chance to tell me what happened with the fireflies. And if you lie to me, I will never speak to you again. And she asked Joe a couple questions like, did you... And he's getting teary-eyed. And he just shakes his head. Yes. he was the one that did it. There was no Raiders. It was for him. And then he tells her, he says, I've thought about that day, and if I had it to do over, I would do the same thing again. And Ellie's like, 'cause you're selfish. You're an asshole. And you could tell on the verge of tears. And she stops for a moment, looks out over the railing, and she goes, I don't think I can ever forgive you for this. And we get a pause. But I'd like to try. And we reach a moment of understanding. But yeah. A lot of Joel Ellie interaction, a lot of the build up in Jackson that we missed because clearly there that have been there for a number of years in Jackson. But none of this had really been explained since we started out the second season with the return of vengeance for what Joe did. So yeah. But a good episode, fills in the background information. Tommy's wife finally comes around while they're at the dance, and she's talking to Joe at a table they're sitting at. She's like, look, about being a refugee, about saying you're a refugee, I no longer think of that. And she tells him, as far as I'm concerned, grumpy Uncle Joe is family. So everything's looking up, even though we know what will happen. But yeah. Overall, it's a good episode. A lot of great storytelling, which is mainly what it was. It was an episode of storytelling. To fill us in on the gaps that were in between. So yeah, we see it really is kind of a father-daughter setup. She's still his little girl for the first 2 birthdays. And then that one, she's smoking pot, getting a tattoo and everything. She's kind of pulling away and trying and becoming herself, as tends to be the cases with kids. They hit a point where, they will often conflict with their parents, clash with their parents and everything, because they're trying to grow up. But yeah. But it's the lie. Because she had been suspecting for a while, but when he shot Eugene in the woods, lying to her, you can tell it was a breaking point for her. Because she was always concerned that Joe may have lied. And it turns out, yeah, he did. And that's when the deepest fissure in the relationship happened. But Ellie would acknowledge, I would like to try to forgive you. And so it's like they would have to begin again as friends, as adults. But we know what happened. But yeah, that will be the end of that episode. As always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.